so broken. I couldn't think. My emotions were just crazy, going wild, and my thoughts were going wild. I was not in a good place at all. First person I called was my daughter, and she lives out in Virginia. And I don't know why I called her, because there was no way she was going to be able to come and be with me and help me. But I did. But then I called her first, and I wasn't on the phone with her for maybe 3 minutes, and I just hung up because I was bawling so much I couldn't even talk. And then I called David right away because he lives close. And I tell you what, David was there for me. I called and he was right there at the house. And I remember him asking me on the phone though before he came over. He said, "You're not going to do anything stupid, are you?"
The voice you just heard is that of William Hess. William talks about what life was like growing up, from drinking at a young age to joining the military and getting married to realizing the relationship he was in for 30 years was a mistake. He also talks about what inspired him to do foster care. I hope you guys find his story inspiring and insightful. I'm your host, David Hess. This is Rising Above. Enjoy the show. Dad?
I'm doing pretty well. A little nervous. I've never been in a spotlight before in my life with anything. So, but anyways, yeah. When I was a child growing up, back in I was born in 1966, and growing up in the 60s, 70s, into the 80s. My parents, they were both very young parents, and they didn't know what they were doing. They didn't know anything about life really, and they probably were the worst match of people getting married. And there was a lot of domestic violence in my house, constant fights all the time, and it was not a very good environment for children to be raised in. It was extremely hard on me and my sister. And as I was growing up and going through all life's changes growing up, I had a lot of problems, a lot of issues, because of the environment I grew up in. I started drinking a lot when I was a teenager, and everything. A friend of mine from school, his friend that he befriended me because I had a lot of problems at school, and he did too. And so he wanted to befriend me, and he did. And he witnessed to me about Jesus Christ and the love that he offers and provides. And that was all I needed to hear, that I was loved and cared about. And I've been searching for that. It was I didn't feel I was getting it at home, and I didn't have very many friends. I was very reserved, and so I accepted Jesus Christ as my Savior. And his parents were always real good to me. They're like my second family, and had me going to church every week. They'd pick me up Sunday morning, take me to church. They picked me up for Wednesday nights for youth group, and made sure I was involved in youth group activities when they were having fun activities going on and stuff like that. And they were a real blessing to me and helped me through a lot of my life. Um, and but after that, I was about 12 years old actually. Uh, During that time, and I went to church from the time I was 12 to almost 16. That's when I started drinking a lot, and I didn't go to church much anymore. I had a lot more freedom because I bought my own car. I have a car, and I'm driving to school, driving to work. I'm not home a lot, and I knew. So I got in the party life and stuff like that. Never got in trouble with it. Thank goodness, because it could have been terrible. And then I oh, I forgot what I was gonna say.
So at that point, you stop going to church and you're partying
Right.
quite often. You're working. You're in high school, right?
Yes. Um, I've always had a job and did some kind of work to earn money since I was like 12 years old. And I worked on. I started out mowing lawns, and then I became like a lawns keeper for a retired doctor, and he was a great guy. World War One veteran actually, and he was an Englishman. He decided to come to America after the war. But anyways, he had a great influence on my life. And I worked for him for a couple of years. I worked for a farmer for a few years in a strawberry patch. Started out picking strawberries. Bought my first bought my first car buying strawberries actually, or I'm picking strawberries.
That's a lot of strawberries.
Yeah. Well, I bought $1,000 car and I got 25 cents a quart.
Wow,
So yeah, I picked a whole lot of strawberries.
that is a lot.
I was a hard worker though. I always worked very hard, trying to earn my way through life. I knew I would never get the help I would need from my parents. So a lot of kids had help from their parents to go to college or tech school or whatever, and I knew that was just not going to happen for me. And so I knew I had to work twice as hard as anybody else to make it. And then my senior year in high school, I had a co-op job. So I went to school for like just a couple classes, I think, if I remember right. And then I had my co-op job. And I do my co-op job for like 4 hours, go home, and I go to bed, go to sleep. And then I had another job I worked third shift on. And it was full time, and it was at a gas station. And so I did that, and I did my homework while I was on that shift for school. And then I drive straight from work and go to school. And that was my Monday through Friday. And then on the weekends, I worked for OG's car wash. Anyways, it was a car wash. So I worked there on the weekends. So I was finishing up my high school and working one full time job, two part time jobs. And my life has always been kind of like that. I was always working a lot. Um, well, then I eventually met someone I fell in love with and got married. And, I had started my own family. Had a daughter first, then I had a son. And just like my parents, um, it was a horrible relationship. But it wasn't bad yet. It was at this point. It wasn't bad. I mean, we had our issues and stuff, but worked through them. It wasn't that bad yet. And in my heart, I always wanted to do something to help kids that were disadvantaged. kids that needed help and had no way of getting it. And it was a passion of mine. And my wife of the time, she's now my ex-wife, anyways, she mentioned doing foster care. And I thought about that for probably about 6 months, and I decided, you know what, that would be perfect for me because I'd be able to help them be there for kids during their absolute worst time in their life, when they're taken away from their parents because their parents can't take care of them. And I really opened up my heart to that. I really wanted to do it. I'd be hands-on, and I've always been more of a hands-on person, all in kind of person than somebody that's in the background, just donating money or um, doing some um,
Some sort.
volunteer work or whatever. And so we started doing foster care. And we had our first case, a couple of boys, and they were great. They were great boys. They were taken from their mother, and we took them in, and it was hard at first, because they don't know what to think. We don't know what to think. First experience for all of us. So we had some toys they could play with and helped them interact in the house with our kids, and that helped them some. And they finally got used to the idea of being in our house. It didn't take very long, about a couple 3 days. They were getting comfortable. They knew they were in a safe place. Nobody was going to hurt them. And and eventually these kids unfortunately get to the point where you can't handle them anymore, and so they have to move on. But in this case, one of the boys, one of the brothers, got adopted by an aunt, and they were half brothers. The aunt didn't want to adopt the other one, and he got out of control where he had to move on to somebody else who could actually help him more than we could now. And then we got a couple of girls in, these sisters, and they were real sweet girls. And their aunt, they haven't had an aunt that eventually adopted them after the mom totally lost custody. And that was very successful. That was really good. And then we got these other two boys in our home, and they're brothers, and they had two other siblings that were in two other foster homes. And well, my son David, who's sitting here with me right now, one day, well, shortly after um, the rights of their mother were terminated because she couldn't do it, David was asking me to adopt him. And I never thought about doing adoption myself. I always wanted to be there for these kids and help them in the worst time of their life, like I said before. And I didn't want to adopt because it would close my home. I wouldn't have room for any more kids. It would basically close my home, so I couldn't help the kids no more. And it was a very, very hard decision for me to make. And there for a few days, he was like begging me to adopt him. And I felt so bad that because he really wanted to be a permanent in my family, and that wasn't what I was planning. So I was really struggling with the whole idea of adoption now. And then you know what I prayed to God about it, and sincerely in my heart, I felt that I need to do this. I need to give them a forever home. And so I said, yes, we'll adopt you. And then, so we did. And something was really different about this situation in my home because at this point, now within the first week of the adoption being final, my now ex wife started turning on the kids, mostly David. Um, Joey, my son Joey, which is David's brother, um, that we also adopted. He was like the golden child that couldn't do anything wrong. David all of a sudden became the child everything was blamed on. And there's 4 kids involved. I have 2 of my own. Um, I have David and Joey I adopted. No matter what happened in the house, it was David's fault. And as time went by, it just got worse and worse. Her behavior became so horribly bad that we had to, I had to call the police. And I'm stuck here in a situation thinking, great, I'm in a position where now I could lose all my kids to foster care. That was running through my head like crazy, and I didn't want that. I want my kids. So now I became like on the other end of the situation, although that never happened, and even though it very well could have, but it didn't. Um, so she got arrested, went to jail, and I went to the courthouse the next day, and I was there for her and helped her to get out, paid the bail and everything. And she was ordered by the judge to go to anger management classes, which she did, and I always drove her there, drove her home, and she calmed down for a little bit, but it didn't last very long. And then she was back to it, and it was like a family secret. We kept it a secret because I didn't know what else to do. I was convinced in my mind through my church that you don't divorce no matter what. You make it work. It's a man's job to hold the family together. And so I held on to those values real tight. And hindsight's 2020. And I have so many regrets concerning my life and the raising of my children and protecting them like I should have. And I've expressed these thoughts and emotions with all my children, and thankfully they love me enough to forgive me for not protecting them as well as I should have. But I did protect them. I went to battle for them every single day against that woman to protect them, and I did protect them a lot every day. But I have to work, and I always worked a lot of overtime. I wasn't always home. every break, I called home to see what was going on. Um, and if there was something bad going on, I'd be talking to my ex-wife and telling her, "Hey, you gotta stop doing this, do this instead," and so on and so forth. Try and protect the kids while I'm at work. And that every break I had for 10 years, I I called her, I called the kids, and see if it was going to be a good day or a bad day. And if it was a bad day, I had to try to take action over the phone, whatever I could do.
That's also hard now, knowing, as an adult, working at GM, when you're constantly doing repetitive motions all day long. That's all you're thinking about. Just the same thoughts just keep circling in your head,
Absolutely.
and it's hard to kind of deal with those situations when you're at work. So I couldn't even imagine being in that position as well.
Yes, it was very much just like what you said. And, the whole time I'm at work, every minute I'm at work, that's all I'm thinking about is what's going on at home. What can I do to help the kids while I'm here? And it was horrible. It was really bad. Um, and I don't want to go into too much detail because I'll just break down here.
We don't need to.
Yeah, but eventually, she went off, had an affair, and moved in with another man, and I don't have to worry about her no more. So, and and we're all better off for it.
Yep, agreed. So at some point, as time went on, closer to the ending of me living at the house, things got really bad, and I kind of talked about it in the previous episode that's coming out tomorrow. Um, but our relationship wasn't great at that point, and unfortunately.
Yeah.
But shortly thereafter, like I'd say about a year after, you got me into GM, and we started kind of building a relationship from there. We, would sit in the truck every night and just talk, and
Yeah.
that's a good memory that I have and I'll always keep. I really enjoyed those times. So now you and I have a great relationship. We have a strong relationship. So
Yes. Yes,
yeah,
we do. Um, Unfortunately, I was her behavior got so horribly bad. David, you had to just do what you need to for yourself. Period. And you were doing it. You were doing what you had to do for yourself. And at the time, I didn't see it. I saw it as you being rebellious. Um, you're going against everything that we teach at the church, and stuff. And so I felt like I couldn't defend you anymore. And so it, it got real bad. And I love you. I loved you then just as much as I love you now. But I guess I didn't have the thought process to understand what was going on with you until after all of that.
right.
But I commend you on you're a brave man. You're very brave. When you were a young 17-year-old, you moved out of the house, got on your own, and you did it. You really did it. And I'm very proud of you. You did what you had to for yourself, and I thought I'd never see you again. But it was about a year later. I see you in almost a year. You started showing up a little bit at the house, not a lot, The first time you showed up, I was ecstatic. I was like, oh, awesome. My son is coming back around. Oh, I was so happy. And then, about a month later, it come around again, and it kind of went like that. And GM happened to be hiring. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna. David's working really hard, and he needs something better. First thing I thought of is getting a referral for David, my son, and try to get him into General Motors.
I remember when you first approached me about that, you're like, I don't know if you'd be interested in accepting a referral, and I was like, no, I don't want to, because mainly at that time, again, I knew that I wanted to do life my way, and I wanted to find my own path. I didn't want help from you or anybody, because I hadn't taken any handouts, and so originally I said no. I don't know if you remember that. It was like in the summertime.
I don't remember that at all.
So I said no, and then I think a couple months later you approached me about it again, and I was like, I'll think about it, and then eventually we decided to sit down and put in the referral together. But that was life changing for me, that moment. And I'm glad I did it.
That's awesome. I'm glad I was able to help you get your life better,
Yeah.
and where you didn't have to work as hard as you were, because I've been there, I know.
Yeah, I was struggling to just make it. Yeah. All this is hard to unpack and kind of talk about.
It is, but it's good.
Yeah. So let's kind of go back a little bit and talk about. You said you were drinking when you were 12.
Yeah, I started drinking a little bit when I was 12 years old.
And do you think you kind of got into that to escape what was going on in your household?
Um, at the time, when I was 12, no, it was more like,
You just want to have fun.
yeah. Well, what really started me, it was my dad. Like at Christmas time, when I was 12 years old, Christmas came up, and he said, "Hey, you want to have a drink?" And I'm like, "Really?" Yeah, sure. What 12-year-old don't want to have a drink with his dad? I think that's really cool.
Right.
You know. So I did that, and my mom was mad as a wet hornet. Not at me, but my dad for doing that. And then New Year's Eve came up, same thing, did it again. It was and then kind of every year after that, around that time of year, my dad would do this, and she'd get really mad. But I didn't start really drinking until, I guess I might have been 15. I think I might have been 15 when I started drinking more. I had friends that were older than me, like just a year older, but in the same grade. They had their driver's license. They come out, pick me up, and we get some alcohol, and we go drinking, being stupid, and stuff like that. And so
So you started drinking heavily when you were 15. How long did that last for?
well, it was like a weekend drinking kind of thing.
Okay.
It wasn't during the week because of school and
Right.
stuff.
Because I know at some point you decided that you weren't going to drink anymore, and you hadn't had a drink in a very long time.
Yeah, that was. I was 26. Well, actually, let's go back to where I was in the army. When I was in the army, that's when I was really drinking heavily, but it was only still on weekends. And I had to be good for my job, good for the PT in the morning, and everything else that entailed in being in the army. But yeah, like Friday night, Jim Beam was my drink back then. It was cheap, really cheap whiskey, and I drink a fifth Friday night, and the other one Saturday night.
Wow.
Yeah, I'd be breathing that fire through Wednesday. I hated PT in the morning. Probably more to do because of the effect that drinking had on me than
Right.
anything else. And my ex-wife, her father-in-law was an alcoholic, and if I had a day off work, we would go over to his place, and I drink with him. A lot of times, I just get drunk with him, and I sleep on the couch there, and my wife would take the kids home because the kids had to go to bed, and my father-in-law and I are staying up late drinking. Did that quite a bit. Stuff like that. A lot of times I went home with my wife after drinking with her dad. And so I think I was like 26. And I decided that at that time I wanted to dedicate myself to God again. Like I mean I was going to church here and there, but I didn't really care. I was going because my wife wanted me to, and it was good for the kids to see their dad going to church, but I didn't really care about it. But then something changed in me, and I decided that you know what, I need to go to church. I need to read my Bible. I need to become more dedicated to God. And I thought I gotta quit drinking. So I did. I quit drinking right away, went cold turkey, and never missed it. To my father-in-law, I was most worthless man in the world because now he's not his drinking buddy no more. It made him mad. And,
That's the unfortunate part about making decisions like that. When you decide to quit drinking or doing drugs and hanging around the people that you did that with, they oftentimes, shun you for it, and they kind of look at it as like a personal attack on them.
Yeah, especially if it's a family member, like your father-in-law or even your own parents. It can happen too, or whatever, or even siblings. That hurts you the most when it's family. But no matter who it is that's shunning you because your life is changing for the better, then so be it. You're so much better off without them if that's the case.
Right.
You don't need that kind of people in your life, period, no, if they're family or not. So, yeah, so then I started being more dedicated to church. So I worked 7 days a week. I get one Sunday off a month. But I go to church like Sunday night if I couldn't make it Sunday morning, or because the shift I was on, I might be on third shift. Spend a lot of time on third shift, and I go to church after I got out of work. Go home, get cleaned up, go to church with the family, and go home, go to bed. Stuff like that. And I really loved reading the Bible. I really loved hearing the preaching and helping me better my life. But it's like a two-edged sword. Because there's a lot of things the churches teach that isn't necessarily biblical. They just add extra rules to living which aren't actually in the Bible. And so the pendulum can swing too far the other way.
Could you kind of give an example or two?
An example, like, well, my favorite example is what I experienced is in every church I've been to. Of course, I've always been to churches that were very conservative, and there's nothing wrong with them. Most of them teach the Bible very well. They just get a few things wrong, like the issues of marriage, divorce, and remarriage. But the divorce one is a really big one in fundamental churches, and you're taught that no matter what's going on at home, no matter how your spouse is, you're supposed to stay married, and you're supposed to. And it's a man's job to make it work. It's always his job. If it fails, it all falls on the shoulders of the man in the house. And so it's like the the wife can act however they want, do whatever they want, and that's fine. But that man better make sure they stay together. And that's wrong. That's completely wrong. There is actually a few good reasons, biblical reasons, to get divorced. And I don't have the Bible verses in front of me or anything like that right now. But one of them is if your spouse is having relations with another person outside the marriage, that's definitely okay to get divorced. And not only get divorced, but move on in life, find another spouse, and get remarried. That's okay in the Bible. But you'll hear all kinds of people calling that blasphemy. That's not right. The Bible don't teach that, but it does. They misinterpret verses in the Bible or ignore verses in the Bible to fit their idea how it should be.
From your experience, it seemed like they kind of wanted to paint this perfect scenario where you're always supposed to stay married, and if you do get divorced, then you're not supposed to show that you're happy again. So I remember, for instance, you started dating, and you brought your now wife to church, and the pastor had told you to pretty much stop coming because you made dating look fun, or you made divorce look fun rather. And in reality, he didn't really know what you had really gone through. He cared about the image of the church more.
Yes, that did happen, but not until he warned me not to get remarried. And and so he said it was okay for me to meet some ladies, but he didn't say. But he was like, can't get remarried. And I don't know what he meant by that. Am I supposed to live in sin or something? I don't know. But anyways, yeah, it made me feel like I'm supposed to be lonely and miserable the rest of my life because I chose the wrong person to get married to. And when he found out I got married, he came over to my house and asked me to leave the church. And he wanted me to lie about it. He wanted me to blame it on my new wife that she didn't want to go to my church, which was true also, but that's not why I was leaving the church. She knew how much it was important to me. I've gone there for like 19 years, and had close friends there. And I already lost so much, I didn't want to lose anymore, and she understood that, so she was willing to go to church with me. But he's the one that told me to not go to church, to their church. And and ever since then, I've tried different churches and gone to different churches. I haven't felt comfortable in church since. I mean, and even if I find a church, I don't know how involved I'll get in the church. Like before, I've been a deacon. I was a Sunday school teacher for a lot of years. Sunday school superintendent, assistant superintendent. Did a lot of things. Always active in the church, but I probably won't get active in a church again. I don't think I can build real close relationships with people in a church again, because many of the things that happened during my divorce leading up to the divorce, after the divorce, and everything. Um, Come to find out, my ex-wife was assassinating my character for at least a year that I know of. I think probably closer to 2 years. And all these people behind my back are talking about me, and it makes sense now that I can look back, as hindsight's 2020. And I remember the last couple of years I went to that church. Um, Even my closest friends were starting to be a little different around me, and I didn't understand it at the time. I didn't catch it. I'm not real good at picking up hints or anything from anybody. You know, I mean, I'm a straightforward person. You tell me, and I'll get it. But if you just want to be passive aggressive, I'm not going to catch that. And so now not only did I lose my wife to another man who I was supposed to hold our marriage together no matter what, and putting up with all the abusive behaviors of her in order to keep the marriage together, and watching my children get hurt, and um, all that, it wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth it at all. I should have, when she went to jail, I should have got a PPO and should have filed for divorce the next day, so she couldn't come home and hurt us no more. But hindsight, you know.
So let's kind of talk about that period in your life when you were going through your divorce. I remember you were kind of you were struggling emotionally. Obviously, you guys had been married for 30 years, right?
Yes.
And so you pretty much had to kind of learn how to do everything on your own again, because she was the one who did all the bill. She did all the bills and handled all the money, and you essentially had to kind of just learn how to do everything on your own. And I think through all of that, it's made you a stronger person emotionally uh, and just in your life in general.
Yes. Of course, I always knew how to do all those things. You know, how to cook, how to do laundry, how to, do all the household things. But I never got involved in it much because she was a stay-at-home mom and she didn't have to work, so she took care of that stuff. And but but it was a shock having her just disappear on me, and I'm all of a sudden a single father. Is we have a son that has special needs, and he's a lot to handle, and she left him too. She didn't want to take my son, my other son, with her, David's brother. Of course not, because the boyfriend wouldn't want him around. So she left him with me, and which I was I had to, at the same time I'm dealing with all my hate. I mean hurt, not hate. I mean dealing with all my hurt, and it was just a real blow to me about how everything happened, everything I stuck through the marriage for. Then this happened, and it was extremely difficult, very difficult. But I did it. I took care of my son very well. I cooked healthy meals for us. I wasn't cooking out of a box or going to fast food. I was cooking good, healthy meals for us every day. I was cleaning the house, doing the laundry, doing the dishes, doing everything. Everything his mom did, I did, plus working overtime at work. And if I was lucky, I had an hour to sit down and relax before I went to bed. Um, that was at first. Then I learned how to organize myself a little better. And pretty soon I'm having 2 hours before bed that I can kind of relax, and it kind of went like that. And then it got to where it was natural, and I was having a lot more time. It took a lot for me to get there, but the initial shock was extremely hard, of course, being married for 30 years, finding out that she just decided to move out with another man.
On Thanksgiving.
Yeah, on Thanksgiving, of all times during a holiday. And I was just totally broken. I couldn't even process what had happened. Um, I woke up. She snuck out in the night because I'm basically deaf without my hearing aids. So she waited till I was asleep, and that's when she left. I woke up the next day and she was gone. I couldn't find her anywhere in the house. I was calling her phone, but I already knew at this time she was having an affair. I was trying to save the marriage still.
Because that's what you were supposed to do as the
Right,
man.
right.
Yep.
And but anyways, I was so broken I couldn't think. My emotions were just crazy, going wild, and my thoughts were going wild. I was not in a good place at all. First person I called was my daughter, and she lives out in Virginia. And I don't know why I called her because there was no way she was going to be able to come and be with me and help me. But I did. But then I called her first, and I wasn't on the phone with her for maybe 3 minutes, and I just hung up because I was bawling so much I couldn't even talk. And then I called David right away because he lives close. And I tell you what, David was there for me. Um, I called and he was right there at the house. And I remember him asking me on the phone though before he came over. He said, "You're not gonna do anything stupid, are you?" And I said, "I don't want to. I don't want to." But at the same time, I don't want to say. Um, I don't want to say I was thinking about it either. When obviously I kind of was. And so um, David was there for me, and then
Sorry, there's a problem with the cameras.
okay,
To switch this camera onto you.
okay,
All right, we're good.
um, and David was there for me like nobody has been there for me in my whole life. And David really is. He's humanly speaking, he's my rock. If there's anything I need, he's there. If I need help with anything, he's there. Um, he, I can't tell you I, how much it meant to me for you to be there for me that day. But it just amazes me how you're still there for me today. If I need you, you're always there every time, and without question. And I try not to abuse that. I do my best not to. But if you didn't show up when you did that day, you know, I may not be here today. That's for sure.
Well, I'm glad you are, and I'm glad I was able to show up just in the nick of time. Um,
Yeah, me too.
so now, kind of looking back at everything and looking forward, what does life look like for you? What are some goals? And you obviously had a passion to help children back then. Um, what's next?
I really don't know yet. Um, I'm still pretty mixed up about what happened to me, losing my first wife the way it did, losing my church. Um, and I haven't thought much about what my future would be, except I am focusing on retirement. I'm trying to save and put away as much money as I can for retirement because I want to take care of my my wife Sherry. I want to take care of her the best I can into retirement, and I want to be able to have money saved so I can travel to see my grandkids. That's and of course her grandkids too.
They're your grandkids too.
Yeah, yeah. They're all of our grandkids now.
Right.
But um, my greatest fear in retirement is run low on money or run out of money, so I won't be able to do those things and see my family the way I want to see them and travel to see them. Um, as far as goals for helping children, I still have a passion for them. But I think my time is done with that. Um, after you moved out, got on your own, we started doing foster care again, and we had two or three cases come through our home, and the last case I didn't even want because I thought she would be a little different after learning some things after what we've been through with foster care, but she didn't. She would favor one and hate on the other. And I was like, we can't have this. We're not doing foster care no more. The last case we had, I told them I want them removed. I want the kids removed.
Wow.
And it had nothing to do with the kids. It was, we had some really good kids too. I mean, this one child we had, I remember, you're not supposed to have favorites, right? But this one was my favorite. And he was just the cutest little boy, the most loving little boy you could imagine. And he always aimed to please. He really loved being loved, and I loved him dearly. I would have, if I was younger at the time, I would have adopted him too. Um, took him ice fishing. He was only um, 4 years old, 5 years old. I think five maybe. I took him ice fishing with me, and he had a blast. Caught his first fish. He never been fishing before at all. Period. First time he went was ice fishing.
Wow.
And caught a fish. I never seen a kid so happy. But yeah, those days are gone. I had to finally quit foster care because my ex just couldn't hold herself together, and I didn't want any more kids getting in that position of her hurting them. She wouldn't hurt them physically, but she was very, very emotionally abusive and mentally abusive to them. And I just couldn't do it no more. And now that I'm older, I'm 55 now, and I've raised 4 children. Well, 2 children I raised from babies. The other 2 children I raised from adoption. And I helped a lot of kids on their life travels and worst times of their life. And I think I'm done raising kids. I think I'm worn. I think I'm tired. I think I did my job, and regardless of how bad things were at home even back then, I believe I did the absolute best I could. I strived every day to do the absolutely best I could with the situation I was in. And so I don't have any regrets doing foster care or adopting, have my own children and raising them and everything. I only regret the person I chose to do it with. And well, that's all in the past, and I have a better life now. I have a closer relationship with all four of my kids that I ever have, and all I can do is give God the praise for that. Because all through Him, if it wasn't for Him, I don't think I'd have the love I have now for my kids.
So I think that kind of sums it all up for us. Um, but real quick, I think I'd like to ask you if there's anybody that's kind of in the situation that you were in at any point through your life, uh, looking back, would there be any advice you'd want to give, real quick?
I would tell them that if they're in a situation that's abusive and you have children and the church is telling you that you have to make it work, I say no. I say you are stronger than you think you are. And you have the inner strength, not from only yourself, but mostly from God. God will give you the strength to get through it. But you get that person out of your life, whether you leave them or you kick them out, you do whatever it takes to get them out of your life. And you protect those children, and you will never have the regrets I have. Life won't be easy, it'll be hard, but it won't be as hard as sticking it out in an abusive relationship like that. That's for sure. Um, you will always have family and friends to depend on. If you don't, there are some people I know and understand that don't have family that would help them for anything. But usually in those situations, you have friends that will help you. So you just get away from that abusive relationship, no matter what it takes or what the cost, because the rewards will be much greater in the future.
Well, my camera just died on me again. Um, I want to thank you for coming on, Dad. It's been real nice hearing your story, and I hope that your story can be an inspiration to others. And I think we'll end it there.
Okay.
Thank
Thank,
you.
thank you for having me.
You're welcome.